Ladies and gentlemen, if I might have your attention, please, we're going to ask you to continue with your dessert and coffee and allow us to get on with our program tonight. This is certainly one of the unique experiences of our Bassmasters Classic Week. And before we get into this week, I'd like to say on behalf of the one expert who's been to all of the classics, myself, and of course I think Bob Cobb, and no one else. Bob Cobb is, of course, our great director and producer of the Bassmaster television program. He's been with Bass since the very dawning. But of all the classics we've held, and many of you fellows have been to scores of them, I think this was the finest supper we've had since Frank Martinelli left. Would you all agree this was a great dinner? Let's give the chef and our hand. This has been a marvelous dinner. Now the night, of course, is a special night, and with that thought in mind, now I'm going to proceed and ask you, as I said earlier, just go ahead. Some of you are still getting dessert. Go right ahead. And the second one, yes, ma'am, don't mind. Get the second one. There's not any calories in that dessert. You know, this culture we live in has a number of old-time sayings that deal with the business of taking advantage of opportunity when it allows itself to meet us face to face. You got to strike when the iron's hot. And a year ago, David Fritts had that golden opportunity. Nobody knew David Fritts, and he won the World Championship of Bass Fishing, the 1993 Bassmasters Classic on Logan Martin Lake. Now, winning that classic ring and the big money, the $50,000 that went with it, is a high watermark in any professional fisherman's career. But to really make the hay, you have to hit the seminar trail. You have to expose yourself into your victory. Make public appearances, do interviews, do filming of commercials, negotiating and renegotiating contracts. This takes a lot of your brain that otherwise has been spent on concentrating on fishing. And winning the Classic, he said, this is Fritz's line, winning the Classic, he said, is the easy part. He said, being a Classic champ is a hard job. People expect a lot of you, and you can't blame them. Sponsors expect a lot of you, and this is a time when you can pay them back for the support they gave me on my way up. A Classic champion's family life suffers also. As David says, he says, my wife and my little girl hardly know what I look like. Now, trying to balance a travel schedule with a family and responsibility to go with it invariably impacts a Classic champion's success on the tournament trail. Seldom, if ever, can a man keep it all together and do all the things out there that have to be done contractually and then still concentrate and keep focused on fishing. Rick Clunn's the only man in history to ever do it. Most defending champions have to use automatic bid to qualify the following year, and of course that's one of the benefits and one of the payoffs of winning a Classic is you do have, whatever happens, a bid in next year's Classic. If you earn a trip to a Classic strictly on their own. Now that's why it's such an incredible achievement for David Fritts to follow up his Classic victory with the Bass Angler of the Year award. And he did it in grand style. He caught 61 pounds of bass, more than the nearest competitor. Unprecedented. For the record, David caught in the year following the Classic, this season just passed, 432 pounds and 7 ounces of bass. Now take note of his amazing accomplishments on this past year's trail. He won the first event right out of the Classic. Boom, out of the Classic, all the hoorah and telephones and telegrams and negotiations, and all of a sudden, where's Fritts? He wins again. He won the Virginia Invitational on Bugs Island. And he followed that a week later with a third in the Bassmaster BP Top 100 on the Potomac River. He missed the money in Megabucks and the Oklahoma Invitational. Then he turned and finished second in the Top 100 on Lake Martin in December. He was 24th in the Texas Invitational in February, followed by 3rd in the Alabama Invitational, and then another victory on the top 100 tournament in Lake Seminole. He earned good paychecks twice more before the year was out, 2nd in the South Carolina Invitational and at Santee Cooper, and 4th, of course, in the Bassmaster Superstars tournament in June. Add all these paydays up, and you'll see that David earned $200,500. That's not counting last summer's Classic. Shaw Grigsby, last year's runner-up in this Bassmaster or Bass Angler of the Year award race, he said it better than anybody, I think. He said the real feat, the real accomplishment isn't winning Angler of the Year. It's that he won Angler of the Year after winning the Bassmasters Classic. It's really a tribute, Shaw said, to a great man. Tonight, let's forget about whether he will live up to his billing as a pre-tournament favorite, and let's pay tribute to a young man that everybody who loves fishing, young, old, rich, and poor, think is their hero. And let's pay tribute to this man, the 1994 Bass Angler of the Year, our hero, David Fritts. David, just a minor formality. This is, of course, everybody knows it, but we always like to make it look as big as possible. I'm sure you can find a way to spend $50,000, which you just to go with the rest of the money. This is, or is it 50,000? No, 5,000. 0 plus or minus. All right, that's. And then what is anything else doing? Helen had a hard time. Pick Helen off the floor. Yeah, the real check Lisa has. All right, what do we do with this now? Let's get a picture of this right before you make your speech. All right, here we go.
Just all the free entry for you.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to mention that. Hands not quivering at all. By the way, one last thing, and then I'll take this from you and let you make your talk. He also, not that he needs it, he has a free entry in all of our tournaments this next year to go along with his check. And so that's just one more little bit of booty. You want a photograph of that? Okay. Take the sit down anywhere. I'll sit this one in front. It's your program, button.
Well, thanks, Ray. I'm waiting for Gerald to say one more shot. I tell you what, it sure is nice to get recognized by the people in this room, and the thing is that most of you are responsible for me being up here. I am a little nervous tonight. You know, this means a lot to me. But I would like to thank a few people. Most of you are in this room. And I'd really like to thank the fishermen. These people, these fishermen in this room have taught me a lot. You know, I've only been on the trail for 4 or 5 years, but I've really learned a lot. And there's a few individuals I'd like to recognize. You know, I guess one of the first big name fishermen I ever drew was Larry Nixon. Where is Larry? Everybody's head out there. There's Larry. And, you know, I was really dominated by Larry, but Larry treated me probably good as anybody has ever treated me in the boat. And also, by me fishing with all these fishermen, you learn a lot. And Larry taught me a lot about jerk baits. And he probably remembers that time. It's been a while ago. And then I got fortunate enough to draw Tommy Martin. And Tommy Martin gave me a real lesson in topwater. You know, I was out there throwing his crankbait, and he was blistering me with this little old topwater chugging plug. So, you know, you learn a lot. Then there's Peter T. and Mickey Bruce. Taught me more about plastic fishing than anybody else. And then one of my weaknesses was spinner baits. And guess what? I draw out Shaw Grigsby. Then I draw out Kevin Van Dam. So, you know, everything sort of falls into place. And there are really two people in this room that I owe me being up here. Guido Hibden and his family has been a great inspiration to me. They've always given me a lot of support and encouragement. But you know, Guido Hibden gave me one thing that I really needed. He gave me confidence in myself. And my hat's off to him. I don't think I can ever repay him back. Another gentleman sitting over here is a fishing legend. He doesn't have a lot to say, but when he does say something, you better be listening. And 3 years ago at the APMA show, the fishing tackle show, this fella come up to me and said, you know, I shouldn't tell you this, but if I would apply shallow water the way I do deep water, he said, you may become someone to contend with. And this guy knows who I'm talking about, Rick Klein. And those words was really a turning point in my career back a couple years ago. And I listened to Rick, and I went out and I done that. And that's what sort of got me over the hump. So, you know, I think all the fishermen, especially the ones I called out, you meant a great deal to me. The other people, you know, all the people at B.A.S.S. And then this character sitting over here by the name of Ray Scott, you know, you can't say a whole lot about Ray that hadn't already been said. But Ray he's great at what he does. You know, he's a good thinker on his feet. And, you know, Ray makes everything real smooth. And also, if not for Ray and my mom and dad there, I definitely wouldn't be up here. So that's one thing we owe him. But Ray is a master at one thing, something that he is the best at. And he probably don't have any idea what I'm going to say. And it's not jokes either. But Ray is a master of, he's a master setup artist. I mean, I've realized it, especially here lately. You know, we come in off the lake and we're exhausted. Our minds are out there on the lake or they're in our live well, and we walk up on stage and Ray practically puts the words in your mouth. And for that, Ray, I thank you. Because I'm not a real good speaker. I don't intend to be. I sort of just get up here and tell it like it is, if you've noticed. But Ray has helped me a great deal. And I would like to thank all the people at B.A.S.S. The other group of people, a lot of them's in this room, and that's my sponsors. Without them, you know, it's not possible. As well as B.A.S.'s sponsors. You know, this is what makes the wheel go round. And I got a little story. I really wanted to wear a Ranger hat tonight, and I asked Sammy Lee. I had one out my boat, and I thought I had one in my truck, but I didn't have one to match my suit. I thought I did, but I didn't. And it's to commemorate Ranger. And I'm going to tell you a little story about Ranger boats. And I asked Roy Brown to come tonight because he is part of it. And I guess I can say what I want to, right? But nobody's ever heard this story except maybe my mom and dad. But back when I was in school, I guess the first boat I ever had was a 12-foot John boat. I had a 49 Chevy pickup. So you can imagine how classy looking I was going down the lake there fishing every day. And I used to go by this little marina. In fact, it's still on Highway 8 down there. And I never will forget, I drove by and I looked in that showroom window and I seen a blue boat in there. And I said, man, you know, blue, that's my color. I whipped in there, and sure enough, there was a blue and white Ranger. And you know, I'd go down to High Rock, I'd fish, I'd come back by and I'd stop by again. Then finally, I drug my mom and dad down there, and they probably remember it. It's been a long time ago. And I really didn't have enough money to buy a boat. I had to get by with what I could get by with. And I told them down there, I said, one of these days, I'm going to have me one of them Ranger boats, a blue one. So as the story goes, 1985, I don't remember what kind of boat I had, but it was a used one, whatever it was. I went to a regional tournament, and sure enough, I pulled there in the parking lot, and there was a brand new Ranger boat, blue and gold. And I said, man, this is me. This is my chance to get my Ranger boat. And lo and behold, that's where I got my first Ranger boat, 1985. And a couple years later, really actually 1 year later, I met a gentleman by the name of Doug B.A.S. and Roy Brown. And I never will forget it. They come up to me and said, you know, we like the way you fish and you do a good job up on the stage. And here I am with a t-shirt on with holes in it. My tennis shoes are blowed out. They said I'm looking good, you know. What they seen in me, I have no idea. But that has been a relationship that I wouldn't take anything for, and I'd like to personally thank Roy and Doug B.A.S., all these people right here at this table, for being real good to me. Some of the other guys, you know, that stuck out their necks through the years, Mercury Outboards, Chevy Trucks, of course, Browning, and I think Gary's here. But Brandon has been my second oldest sponsor. Ranger is my oldest and Brandon is my second oldest. And those guys have been real good to me throughout the years. Pose Lures, Zoom Plastics, Stren, VMC Hooks, Coastal Del Mar, Lunker Lure, Bang, and Gripper. And I'd also like to say a special word. They're not one of my sponsors, and you know, I've got a lot of good friends in here, and the people back at Wrangler, if I need a pair of jeans, I call them, and guess what? I get them in about 2 days, and I'd like to personally thank them, as well as some of the other people that helped me out, Delco and Lawrence Electronics. So I'd like to extend my personal gratitude to you. And last but not least is my pit crew over here. And really that's what they are, my family. And I tell you, I wouldn't be up here without them. And it has been a difficult year for me, and mainly because I hadn't been home. I've got a daughter, Delisa, that's 5, and it makes things a little tough, along with, you know, missing my wife. But I'd like to take this time to introduce them. My mother, if she'll stand up, and her husband, Bob. That's where all my fishing blood comes from. It comes from my mother's side. I don't know how, but you know, women like to fish too, and a lot of people don't realize that. But my mom's always tried to make sure that I got to go fishing when I wanted to go fishing, and I appreciate that from her. My lovely wife, Elisa. I threatened to have her up here to say a few words, that she couldn't, I don't think she wants to do that. But anyway, I couldn't make it without her. She makes it real easy for me, and I know a lot of times that I'm on the road and I come home and say, honey, I got to go the next day, get my clothes washed, and guess what? They're washed in iron. So, but I do want her to know that I love her. And this fella, first time he's ever been to a fishing function, my dad, Tom Fritts, and his wife, Johnny Lowe. I tell you, my dad really gave me something special. You know, he does a lot of farming, and he's not used to functions like this, so he feels a little out of place. So everybody needs to try to make him feel a little better at home. But he's a real hard worker, and I tell you, that's where I get my hard working from, is from my dad. And you know, I just praise the Lord that him and my mom brought me up in a Christian home, and I want to especially thank them for that. And and last but not least, the guy that helps me fix all them crankbaits, and the lady that sews all these patches on my shirt, and believe me, that's a lot of work. Alice and Webb Brinkley, my mother and father-in-law. And they've been just like real parents to me, and I'm glad that you were able to come. Thanks a lot. And I think that about wraps it up. I would like to say that I'm proud to receive this Angler of the Year, and I'll try my best to uphold it. I don't know how I can do it, but I'm going to try. Thanks a lot to everybody.